Welcome to the BrainShape podcast, hosted by Dr. Andrea Wilkinson, a show where we cut through the noise of the ever-growing, ever-changing world of brain health. What works and what doesn't, what's fact and what's fiction. We look at tips, tools, and techniques backed up by real scientific studies to help you keep your brain healthy and hopefully have some fun along the way. Now, here's your host, Dr. Andrea Wilkinson.
You're listening to the BrainShape podcast, episode number 32. Today is the conclusion of our three-part series on the impact of lifestyle factors on the health of your brain, your cognition or mental functions, and the development of dementia. If you missed the last 2 weeks of the podcast, I strongly suggest that you go back and listen to this three-part series in order, starting with episode number 30. In today's episode, we'll be talking about how food and nutrition affects your brain, and also learn more about Dr. Charvat's company Savonix and the interesting work they're doing. Our guest, Dr. Mylea Charvat, is the founder and CEO of Savonix, a digital cognitive assessment company. Dr. Charvat completed her fellowship in clinical neuroscience at Stanford University. At Savonix, Mylea drives strategy to address dementia globally with business and clinical leaders. She works as a domain expert in digital cognitive assessment with partners from Boston University to Fortune 50 CEOs, seeking to detect and prevent cognitive decline and dementias. Before we get started, I just want to remind you to send me your brain health questions for our new Andrea Answers segment. Simply email me your questions at andrea@brainshape.ca. I'm so looking forward to hearing from you. For the last time, here we go. Here's Dr. Mylea Charvat. I just want to now switch gears to our fourth and final lifestyle factor that impacts the development of dementia, so food and nutrition, which we all know a well-balanced diet is so important for maintaining your health, your physical health, but also your brain health, and it's so important in the prevention of disease. Oftentimes when we talk about brain health and food and nutrition, we hear about the Mediterranean diet. So what is the Mediterranean diet, and what are some of the benefits associated with it?
You know, it's interesting because people will hear the word diet and they're always like, I don't want a diet, right? Because I think they associate a diet with deprivation. I love food. My father's side comes from a French background, and I grew up in a family where food, it's all about the food. By the time I've eaten breakfast, I'm already thinking about what are we going to have for dinner? Where are we going to eat? It's just like I love food. But, I think it's what you eat, right? So you can have a beautiful relationship with food where you eat lots of food, but what is the food that you're eating? And so Mediterranean diet is really focuses limiting saturated fats. So basically animal-based fats. So, things like red meat are very high in saturated fat versus, say, fish or olive oil, which are low in saturated fat. And lots of fruits and vegetables, grains, whole grains. I have celiac disease, so I have to stay away from wheat, but I can eat buckwheat and I can eat brown rice, right? And I can eat things like oats. So things like that. Beans are fantastic. And then really don't deprive yourself of fat, but what kind of fat? Olive oil, avocado, fish and poultry, even fats that come in things like peanut butter, which has got, which is like a great source of wonderful nut-based fats. And so the idea is to restrict things like red meat and sugar. It doesn't restrict carbohydrates. You're eating grains, you're eating rice, you're eating these things, but you're focusing on carbohydrates that are found naturally in vegetables and whole grains versus highly processed food. One of my rules for when I used to practice was read the label, and if it says poly, gluta, blah, 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 it is not food.
Yeah.
If your grandmother would not recognize the ingredients, but then put it back on the shelf, it's not food, right? If the ingredient list for a cake from a bakery should be about 5 items long. If it runs half a page, don't eat that cake. Polypropylene glycol is basically antifreeze. and it's used to sweeten a lot of cakes bought at places. Just read the label. This is not food. So focus on eating food, not chemicals disguised as food. And there is a lot out there that are chemicals disguised as food. And that simple rule of, if you can't pronounce it, you don't know what it is, and your grandmother wouldn't recognize it, it's not food. Put it back. The tortilla chips that you eat tortilla chips, but make sure they contain salt, corn, and maybe some lime and some oil. Anything else, that is not a tortilla chip. I don't know what it is, but it's not a tortilla chip. It's some petrochemical imitation of a tortilla chip. So, and by the way, I bring that up because living in California, I am a tortilla chip fiend. I love them. Just like that and French fries are my guilty pleasure. And I eat them, but I make sure that what I eat has ingredients that are, real and natural, and actually good for my body. Corn's not bad for you. Sunflower oil is not bad for you. Sea salt in and of itself is not bad for you. But if you're eating natural foods, you don't even have to worry about sodium that much because they're not packed with it. It's our overly processed foods that are packed with sodium.
Yeah.
So it's just really whole foods, natural foods. Shop the perimeter of the grocery store. These are little things. If you're worried or concerned about different diseases or medications that you have and how they interact with certain foods, there is a fantastic app called ShopWell. Just ShopWell, WELL, after the word shop. And you can download it and put in the medications, or like me, I have celiac, if you have hypertension. And then when you are in the grocery store, you can scan products and barcodes, and it will tell you whether or not that's a healthy food for you to eat. And so that's a way to maybe have a little backup if all of this gets to be confusing.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about the benefits of eating a Mediterranean diet? And I really appreciate when you sort of highlighted the fact that it's not a diet, because that sort of turns a lot of people off, but just focusing on eating whole, healthy foods. What are some of the benefits associated with that we know of from the research?
Yeah, there's been a ton of information on this over the last, few decades, and that it's been linked to incredible cognitive benefits, including improved memory, better language skills, visual spatial perception. So think about like how puzzle pieces fit together, or reading a map, or navigating your neighborhood on foot, and just more global cognitive health benefits. In a study with about 6,000 participants, they showed that a 30 to 35% reduced risk for memory impairment when following a Mediterranean diet. And they showed that there were less apparent beta amyloid presence in the brain of people who adhere to a Mediterranean diet. And even if you develop dementia, you experience a slower progression or slower rate of decline if you're eating a Mediterranean diet. And so the food that we put into our bodies really matters. And of course, this is a general recommendation. If you're on a medication, like a blood thinner, where you need to limit the amount of leafy you eat, then you must take that into consideration when thinking about a diet like this, right? So less Brussels sprouts and spinach on the vegetables, and maybe more carrots and cauliflower. But you can still eat a very vegetable-heavy diet, and adhere to maybe doctor's recommendations based on other considerations that you might have, especially in folks that are growing older.
Can you tell us a little bit about why a Mediterranean diet is believed to be so beneficial to brain health specifically? So what are the few components, high-level components, that are sort of driving its benefit for overall brain health?
Yeah, so a lot of it is really about vitamins and nutrients, and these fall into a lot of different categories. So one line of thought is the high antioxidants in these foods reduce inflammation. And there was just a talk given at the Alzheimer's conference in Sydney this last week about the direct link between inflammation and the development of Alzheimer's disease. So there seems to be even more support now coming out for the antioxidant theory. Another are the omega-3s and omega-6 fatty acids. And so these are important fatty acids found in things like fish and avocado that help maintain neuron health and structure and function. So they actually support neuron membrane function and structure. And so this helps our neurotransmitters. So those chemicals in the brain we were talking about earlier, I love the way you described the plaque basically gets in the way, right? It just interrupts that transfer. And so these fatty acids support the health, right, of our ability of our neurons to communicate with each other. And so for us to do things like remember and attend. And then we also can look at carotene, which acts as an antioxidant by removing free radicals in the brain tissue. So these are, I'm going to be very generic, chemicals that actually damage brain cells. And so carotene actually removes these from the brain and supports healthy function. Vitamin B, though, especially folate and riboflavin and B12, seem to be really important. So in particular, folate in multiple studies, folate deficiency is associated with incredibly increased risk for Alzheimer's disease and brain-related issues and behavior changes, including even if you have sufficient, if you are deficient in folate and B12, you can even develop psychosis. So these B vitamins are really important to brain health. And then vitamin D. Vitamin D is directly related to plaque buildup, those amyloid plaques you were talking about earlier. So if you are vitamin D deficient, you are more likely to have more plaque in your brain. And so there's a correlation between these things. And vitamin D deficiency is a real problem in our society. Most people are vitamin D deficient. They're not getting enough of it. One of the things that's interesting, and I can't remember the article, but I do remember reading it, is that, for instance, you need some fat in your milk. So vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, so you actually need fat in your diet to absorb vitamin D. So, trade the non-fat milk maybe for a 1 or 2% so that you get some fat to support absorbing vitamin D from the milk. A little bit of time in the sun. This is the tricky thing, though, skin cancer risk, right? But humans were meant to be running around outside, getting our vitamin D from the sun. So since we don't do that anymore in our modern society, I think we have to be very thoughtful and careful about how do we get vitamin D into our bodies. Supplements are a great way to do it. I take a vitamin D supplement every day. It's a food-based vitamin D supplement because that's more readily absorbed into the body. And so just thinking about if you're looking at your diet and you realize, I'm not getting enough folate, thinking about maybe taking a multivitamin or a supplement that contains these things to help boost these vitamins and minerals in the body.
Dr. Charvat, thank you so much for all of your wonderful insights and sharing all of your knowledge with us. If listeners are interested in learning more about you and reading your work, where is the best place they can go to learn more?
Oh, sure. So I have a regular column in Psychology Today under my name. So if you Google my name, Mylea Charvat, you will find my Psychology Today column. And we talk a lot about brain health and cognition, these lifestyle factors that we've been talking about in there. Mm-hmm. We cover a lot of topics. And then I also can be followed on Twitter, also under my name, just my handle. My handle is just my name, Mylea Charvat, all one word, no spaces. Savonix, the company where I am the CEO and founder, we also have a website. We're actually launching the updated website in just a few days. We're very excited about. And there's a ton of content on our new website about lifestyle and cognition. And you can even demo our products and test yourself. And get a free cognitive test on our new website. So. And you'll see the test yourself button is in the corner, and that's at Savonix. That's SAVONIX.com. And it's just a short, brief set of tests that we're making available for free to people who are interested in just knowing more about their cognitive health.
Yes,
and so
so important.
That's another place people can go. We are going to be launching the largest ever population study of cognitive health, specifically focused on understanding cognition at different ages and how Alzheimer's develops. We've talked a lot about risks today and studies of risk, but they've been diabetes and dementia, hypertension and dementia. Nobody's ever done a very large study, especially using all the new digital technology available to us, looking at how all these things cluster to impact cognition, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 50s, 60s, 70s. We're launching just such a study in aiming to recruit 400,000 participants with the School of Public Health at Boston University on November 1 of this year. And that page will be available in November, and it's the ASSIST study. That's just the word ASSIST, ASSIST study.org. And you can join the study. All you need to participate is a smartphone or a tablet, so just a smart device, and about 30 minutes of your time. And that is going to be an ongoing study that we do. We have an incredible group of scientists from multiple universities around the world that join the study. And the idea there is to lay a foundation for understanding how risk factors cluster to produce Alzheimer's disease, because we don't have a picture of that yet. And we believe that that's a next vital step in understanding how Alzheimer's develops in the brain.
That is absolutely incredible. I will put all of the links to everything that you mentioned in the show notes for our listeners. And I just want to thank you again so much for your time. So thank you, Dr. Charvat. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much for having me.
To learn more about Dr. Mylea Charvat and Savonix, you can visit their website at www.savonix.com. On their website, you can also do a free cognitive assessment. I'll put the link in the show notes, and I'll also be sure to include the links to their Twitter and LinkedIn profiles so that you can access them on social media. You can access the show notes at www.brainshape.ca/podcast. Just type episode 32 in the search bar, and today's episode will pop right up. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that this 3-part series with Dr. Charvat taught you all about how lifestyle factors such as sleep, exercise, staying socially engaged, and diet impact the health of your brain and the development of dementia. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so that you'll be notified every time we publish a new episode. And since we're a weekly show, I'll see you back here next week. In the meantime, you can follow me on social media at BrainShapeTO, and be sure to let me know your burning questions for our upcoming Andrea Answers segment by emailing me at andrea@brainshape.ca. Until next time, keep your brain in shape, and as always, it's been such a pleasure hanging out with you.